I've just got to do something, Phil, because I've just realised for
Yeah,
continuity, I do
yeah,
like
yeah.
change the album in the background.
Oh yeah, go on,
This
change the album in the
so
background.
Thanya Iyer and their album, well, it's called Rest or something like that. But I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna change it to a trip hop
Oh
album.
yeah, well, very appropriate for discussing Now and Then by the
Yeah,
Beatles.
yeah, because it's very trip hoppy. I'm back.
Now, we thought we'd wait a bit longer than everybody else to talk about Now and Then so that we could listen to it now and then and maybe absorb some of it and not jump on the same time that all the other Beatles gigs were jumping on. Now, of course, this song follows in the footsteps of, remember Free as a Bird from
Free as
1995?
a
And then, of
bird.
course, in '96, we got another of these.
Just like little girls and boys.
So, yeah, of course, both those songs made based around John Lennon demos from this cassette, which Yoko Ono famously gave to Paul McCartney. And Paul, George, and Ringo went into. It was Paul's Windmill studio, wasn't it? Out in, is it Sussex or wherever it is? He's got that
Somewhere like that,
studio
yeah, yeah.
with Jeff Lynne, of course, and produced those
Mr.
tracks.
Blue Sky.
Which at the time, of course, they didn't really have the technology to do a huge amount with those demos. They built the tracks around them, but they weren't able to denoise it very much, and they weren't able to enhance
I wonder
John's
they should
voice.
maybe revisit it and maybe.
Maybe they should do. I mean, some people have done AI versions on YouTube. You can find AI versions where they've boosted John's voice and made it sound more full bodied. But I think that's by AI imitating it and building it up rather than cleaning it up. Now, of course, what they've done on this recent track with Giles Martin producing and Peter Jackson's techie people working on it is they haven't
The Geeks.
yeah, they haven't digitally changed John Lennon's voice. They just took away the background noise and the piano that was over the top of parts of it. So they basically isolated his voice, but it's not a fake
Got rid of the
recreation.
background hissing.
So we get a more present sounding John Lennon, and then all the rest of the production around it. So, what were your expectations of this, Ben, and what did you think when you heard it?
Well, I'd already heard the unmastered version of it, the original piano version, because I think that was freely, wasn't it, on one of the anthologies?
It wasn't on an anthology. I don't think Now and Then was put on an anthology, but it was.
Or I must have heard it
I
on
think
YouTube.
it had been leaked because I think it was shown in some documentary or something. But there's a version of it circulated around all years.
Yeah.
But since the internet era, it's been all around everywhere.
Yeah. So I was expecting what I probably wasn't expecting the emotional sort of feel of it because it's got very. I think it because we know it's the last single, or is it? And also with the video at the end when they bow and it fades away, and it just sort of makes you think, oh God, never going to see the like of them again. I thought, and I know few people have slagged it off, said it's boring, etc. I think it's really good. I like the harmony. I like you can just about. I mean, the video can be a little bit cheesy in parts, but the bit where Paul and Ringo are singing, I like the fact I didn't pick it up first listen, but you can just pick up Ringo's slightly out of tune vocal in the mix. But I sort of, if it's going to be the Beatles, it's going to be good quality, as in regards to production. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it, and I did find it. I know a lot of people have. I found it a little bit emotional. It kind of tugged at the heartstrings a little bit because this band that we've all grown up with, we've all sort of been told is the greatest band that's ever been, and all this sort of stuff. That this is the end, you know. Unlike Marvel films and Star Wars, where they just keep coming, there is going to be no more new material unless a whole sack of unrecorded demos comes out. This
Yeah.
is it. Apart from Giles Martin remixes, etc., which I know you're not that keen on buying.
Well, I think. Well,
but that's not new material, is it? That's not new Beatles stuff.
No, that's just treating.
So this is it, and I think it's that bit at the end, especially the video. The video is really sort of like, because of the way they sort of, George and Paul playing and that studio in time with the, and there's bits where they're both singing with the lyrics, obviously, from the song, etc. And the bit where it fades out at the end, you see them back and back and back and back to the bit where they bow. I found that really sort of, I didn't sit there and blub. It wasn't like Helen Daniels' Dining Neighbours. It wasn't that sort of moment, but it kind of made you realise that, well, that's it. That's it. It's all we're ever going to hear now is different remixes and remasters of stuff that's been before. So
Yeah. Now, of course, we weren't expecting massive amounts of new material from the Beatles anyway. I mean, the Beatles did end pretty much in 1970, but it
yeah, and
does.
it's pretty
But we
hard
got,
when 50% of you aren't on
yeah.
this earthly
Well, yeah,
earthly
exactly.
plane as well.
So it's not as if the Beatles were still a going concern who'd suddenly retired. But I see what people mean about, oh, this is it because it can't be repeated. This clearly is going to be the last thing they do because of the ages of Paul McCartney and Ringo
Yeah,
Starr.
I
So
did like the
I think that's the key thing, that the
yeah
age that they both got to now, we kind of know that they probably are not going to do anything else. We know
no
there's no more John Lennon demos to do anything with anyway.
no
So
no I
there isn't going to be anything else.
no, and I did like the completing of the circle. The fact that "Love Me Do" was the B side, which was the first single, so it's almost
Yeah.
like it has completed the circle. But it is
Well,
quite sad, really, because we're never going to see. I know we've got all this great stuff. I know you're not. I'm not listening. I'm going to just listen to Mono. I'm not going to listen to Charles Bloody Martin. Um, but we have only got what we've got, and that's all we're ever going to have to listen to. So to know that was the end, it's kind of sad. It's like when your favourite TV show ends, isn't it? You're never going to, you know. But the thing with the Beatles is there's a lot of mystique, and there'll always be books and documentaries. So but
yeah,
yeah, I found it a good track. If you're expecting AC/DC on speed, you're not going to get it. But the
no,
production values, I thought everything about it was what you'd expect from a modern day Beatles record of,
yeah. I
you know,
think they're not trying to make it sound exactly like the 60s. They're not trying to recreate the sound of the Abbey Road album or anything. They're making it, it's a modern production, but in their style. I'll tell you, my expectations going into it were low
yeah, I
because
know that.
I'd heard the demo and I was like, well, yeah, okay, they're going to do this. But I had this view of, well, that's the third one, the one that they didn't bother to finish the first time back in
So if
1994.
it wasn't good enough then,
It
what
wasn't good
makes it
enough
good
then.
enough
What
now?
makes it good enough now? So I was, and there's all this thing about whether George Harrison didn't like the song or whether he only just didn't like the noise on the recording and thought it wasn't workable.
Yeah.
And that's they've now spun it that George only didn't like the noise, and Olivia, his widow, has been convinced to do it because they've corrected that and got rid of that problem with the AI. So
I think he would have liked, I mean, I'm not going to speak for him, but I think
he would
he
probably have
would have
liked the
liked,
fact that they paid a bit of a tribute to him. So the number
yeah.
of things that I noticed about this, I'll tell you what, the first time I heard it, and I listened to it without the video, I didn't watch the video till a couple of days later, but I just like to concentrate on the music, and what I thought was, first thing that I liked was Ringo's drumming, because I thought, wow,
Hmm.
it just sounds so Ringo. It's a bit like his drumming on A Day in the Life and all these songs where it's just so Ringo, but not showing off and not imposing himself on it, but just really working with everything else.
Holding the beat.
So I liked that aspect of it. Of course, yeah, Lennon's vocal is much more present than it is on those other two,
I mean,
reconstituted
yeah,
tracks.
it's quite a haunting,
It's
and I
a
use the
haunt.
word haunting a lot.
Yeah,
It is quite haunting, and it is quite. The lyrics are very simple, which I also
yeah,
think is what makes it
yeah.
what it
Now,
is.
I a lot of people don't like the original demo and think the song is weak or they don't think much of it. I always thought the original demo was pretty good. I liked the idea that Lennon had, and I quite liked the tune. And I thought it was quite a nice, yeah, sort of mellow and slightly melancholy thing. And I
Hmm.
always quite liked it, so I wasn't against the song going into it. Um, yeah, I think great drumming by Ringo, great bass by Macca on there. I like the way they've blended Paul's modern day vocal, Paul, the 80-year-old Paul, singing a sort of harmony backup to what is the 1970s John Lennon,
Yeah.
to sort of cover up, because there's a couple of bits on that demo where John Lennon, he's not doing a committed vocal all the way through because it was a demo, he was just messing
Yeah, and he
about at home.
wasn't. A lot of the lyrics
So
weren't audible, were they?
exactly, so he wasn't singing it exactly like he would have done if he was finalising it. So they've kind of filled that in a bit with the Paul bits, and I think that sort of Paul now singing with John from then, there's something quite emotional about that, really,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
whole thing of like, no, Paul's got so much older, but John didn't get older, and so it makes you think about that. And there's that element, and of course they used to sing together, sounding so well matched. You know, they based themselves on the Everly Brothers, and in this they don't sound, because Paul sounds so much older, but
Well, you think about it, Paul
they
is
still
double the
blend.
age John
Yeah,
was
yeah.
when he
Yeah,
died.
yeah. So they blend. Still blends quite nicely. So I like that aspect of it, and I think Giles Martin has done a really good job on the string arrangement. He's done it in the style of his dad, very much. That could have been a George Martin string arrangement from Abbey Road or something. It's
Yeah, yeah.
just like that style, and I think it gives the whole thing this sweep that I think it just does really work. I think they've done it absolutely as well as you could have expected them to have done it with what they had to work with. And I think it works well. And I say, yeah, it is simple, but it's one of those songs that you can just sort of, for me, you can put it on. And a lot of people I have been reading and seeing people commenting online that they have listened to it over and over again. I saw one guy who's a big Beatles fan, but there's a guy I follow online who's a big Beatles fan, but he's quite, exacting in his music taste. He's not easily impressed, but he really likes this. And he said he listened to it for 1 hour non-stop. I
Yeah, I
mean,
must admit, I did listen. I did watch the video about 4 or 5 times on the
yeah,
trot.
yeah. Now, when I watched the video, I I thought, yeah, it's clever. I Trouble is, I heard that lots of people had been really emotionally moved by the video before I watched it, and there's always a bit of a problem with that,
You
isn't it?
don't do
Because you think,
emotion, do you, Phil?
well, because you think, well, are they going over the top, and is it going to live up to this? And I thought it was clever, but I suppose it was a different side of the Beatles, because in a way, I find the song good as a low key, emotional song with this autumnal feel to it. It does feel like a sort of a coda to their career, and I like it for that. The thing with the video is quite bright and breezy for most of it, isn't it? It's a fun video, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
very much, it's in the spirit of the Beatles for sure. I can't deny that. Very much in the spirit. But I couldn't help thinking that this kind of is a kind of a distraction from the song, because I find the
No, I
song is
understand that.
a reflective song that I want to listen to in the low light, and it's all dark and reflective and
Yeah, the
everything.
bits with Paul mucking, not Paul, with
John messing
John
about,
mucking around. Yeah,
and
that
I can
kind of
see, and of
went
course that
against the grain of the song.
it seems to, but of course, but I can't deny that's very John Lennon, and
Yeah.
it's the sort of thing that John Lennon might even have done. He said, "Oh, we've got this sort of slightly maudlin, melancholy song. Let's do some wacky thing in a video."
Dress up as blancmange.
It wouldn't have surprised me for him doing that. So in a way, it is in the spirit of John Lennon. Um,
And they
but
did cut
yeah,
bits out. They were brave enough to cut bits out from the demo. I think they took out the pre-chorus and some other bits,
the
didn't they?
the bit where he sings "I Don't Want to Lose You" and it goes off like a
Yeah.
sort of a bridge. Um, I think they took that out partly because he kind of loses his way singing in the middle of that.
Yeah, doesn't he just
And
start singing just like almost
yeah,
like he's filling where he's going to put lyrics in later,
yeah,
isn't he?
he doesn't completely finish it. And also it's sort of, you can tell he's wandering off and he's not finished it. But I think McCartney was right, because it has been led mainly by Paul McCartney. And I think he was right to excise those bits and just concentrate on the straight, simple essentials of that bit and build it around that. It's a kind of a less is more thing. People have done, I've seen a video on YouTube where people have done an AI version, taking the backing from what's just been done and filling in with John Lennon's bridge from the demo and making it sound as if the whole thing's complete. And it fools you. It's quite clever.
What was it?
But I don't know whether it really enhanced it. I think they probably made the right decision to do what they did.
I think they did.
But there's all these clever little things, isn't there? Like it starts with the Paul McCartney counting, just like
Yeah.
the first, just like the first album did.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4 on I Saw Her Standing There, and then of course it ends with a little bit of as the sound decays away, you hear a bit of Ringo talking, which is a little bit like the Get Back live on the rooftop, and a little bit like, was it Strawberry Fields Forever? You got a bit of Ringo talking on it, or was it John talking on that? But that's a little bit
Yeah.
a little bit White Album, that is, isn't it? Hear the voices at the end of the track as in the studio chatter.
Yeah. What is it? He screams after one of them. Is it? It's not come together.
I've got blisters
That's
on
it.
my fingers.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's all in the tradition of the Beatles. So there's a lot of attention to detail in there.
Yeah.
And of course, there is some original Beatles on this new track as well, because they've used some backing harmonies and they've taken bits off.
Yeah. Didn't
because
they? Isn't it from?
it's mainly because, but it also
Yes.
there's bits of Here, There, and Everywhere, and
Yeah.
Eleanor Rigby as well, I think.
Yeah, they've taken bits of them for the backing vocals, etc.
Someone's analysed that online. You can also watch a video on YouTube where they actually show you which bits are from where. It's been completely.
Yeah, someone has too much time on their hands.
This is the Beatles. There was always going to be that level of geekery, wasn't there, to analyse it? That was always going to happen.
We are more we're just going to listen to it in our pants kind of guys.
Yeah.
We've got no AI, no script, no nothing, just our pants, and that's it.
But it's interesting. There are people online who are long-term proper Beatles fans who don't really like Now and Then and don't think anything of it, and they just think it's a bit boring, and hasn't connected with them. And there's others that absolutely love it and say that it brings them to tears, and they find it really emotional. So there's been a whole range of reactions.
Yeah, I struggle to see how you can't connect with it, but then I think it comes back to this thing of people are wanting that mid-60s Beatles. They're wanting, that's what they're expecting. But this isn't, it is the Beatles because it's got work by all four of them on it. But technically it's a John Lennon solo song that they've then featured on. And, so it was never going to be that sort of, if you're going into it expecting mid-60s Beatles, Eleanor Rigby, etc., then, you're not going to get that.
It's not that. No, it's more, it feels more like Paul and Ringo and George, although he's obviously not directly involved now, but he's on there, doing a tribute to John Lennon. It's them paying tribute to John Lennon, and also and the bond that they had between them. And also, of course, Paul on this is doing a tribute to George because he plays this solo, the slide style guitar solo.
Yeah.
Very unusual for Paul McCartney to do that, very much in the style of George Harrison. Apparently in 94, when they were doing the Free as a Bird and Real Love, George Harrison obviously plays the slide style solos on those tracks. And apparently Paul McCartney wasn't overly keen on him doing that style of guitar on them. And George, some claim, got a little bit knocked off because he felt like they were going back to the old days where Paul was being a bit of a big brother and telling him...
I was going to say, Paul and George not getting on.
Yeah. So, and some claim that's why George sort of vetoed the third song, because he wanted to finish the sessions off before he ended up falling out with Paul. So, whether that's true, I don't know. But it's interesting that Paul has, in a way, said, okay, George, you were right, I'm going to do it your style now. And done that tribute. Reminds me of when he started playing the ukulele on stage after George died. He used to do the ukulele cover of something?
Yeah, well, he's playing the ukulele in the anthology, isn't he? He's at Paul's place outside. He is playing the
George
ukulele.
is a massive ukulele fan because, of course, wasn't George Harrison the president of the
Ukulele Association?
Yeah, or the George Formby fan club or something like that.
Yeah,
as well.
Was it John Lennon who learnt guitar from ukulele? Was it ukulele?
That I'm not sure.
It was something. It was one of those smaller guitar instruments, and of course, they got different chord structure or whatever it is to them. So he had to relearn on guitar, because I know a lot of his guitar he had to learn from Paul, I believe.
Yeah.
There's probably Beatles geeks out there who are going to go, well, no, he didn't actually. No, he already knew the chords. It was just some other. It was the D minor in the third, whatever that he did.
Well, Rolling Stone magazine, or at least the critic they got to review Now and Then, declared it to be the Beatles' final masterpiece. He's
Yeah.
gone. They decided to go overboard and all the way with it, and they said it's
They've
fitting
gone
in
both feet
to the
first,
career. They've
haven't
gone.
they?
They dived straight in and said it's their final masterpiece, which within days of it being released is
Yeah.
a bold statement to make. Whether it will still be viewed that way, I don't know. I must admit that although I never disliked Free as a Bird and Real Love, I
I've got
always
you back into them, haven't I?
you have got me back into them a little bit. I always quite liked the poppiness of Real Love. I always felt that was more Beatley.
Yeah.
And I think that Real Love, that could have fitted in, that could have, I know it was written by John Lennon in the late 70s, but it could that have been a sort of magical mystery tour thing? Could it have fitted in there or something like that all around then?
Yeah,
1967, could have fitted
yeah.
in could have been a single. I reckon if that song Real Love had been done by the Beatles in 1967, it would have been a massive hit.
Yeah, yeah. So you didn't like real Free as a Bird because you said John's voice was too weak, but I told you that I like the fact that his voice is kind of
Yeah,
distant and
that it's almost as if he's singing from another dimension.
yeah. Or is it
Uh,
Heroes by David Bowie where he had the mic set in? He was at the back of the room with the mic at the front. And he's having to maybe it's that sort of
when he's emoting loudly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So it's almost as if John's coming through from the afterlife or whatever. Of course, if they were to remix that and AI scrub it or however they do with it, his vocal would become as prominent as it is on the new one. So I don't know would you still like that on Free as a Bird?
I like the fact that his voice is almost that you can hear it but can't hear it, if you know what I mean. You know it's there,
Yeah,
but it's not the most prominent sort of thing. I
but
like the
again,
fragility of it, the
yeah.
fragility of his voice.
Again, I do really like Ringo's drumming on that. Of course,
Yeah.
some people don't like about Free as a Bird and Real Love is they don't like the Jeff Lynne production. But that was down to McCartney and Harrison and Starr. I mean, they hired Jeff Lynne. I mean, it was well known by that point. You've got Jeff Lynne. Jeff Lynne had that sound, didn't he? I mean,
Well, didn't he? He did a lot of work anyway, George Harrison.
what he
Anyway,
did
didn't
do.
he?
He
So,
did George Harrison, Cloud Nine, and the Travelling Wilburys.
yeah.
That was that sound.
And what's
And
the fact you told me about Free as a Bird of the video? Even though it's a brilliant video, the only bit that lets that video down is that silly bit at the end with all the stuff floating in the sky. That's the only bit that I didn't enjoy about the video.
because doesn't it end with the music of someone playing ukulele in a music hall?
Or is it Real Love? No, Real Love's the bit where everything takes off, isn't it?
Yes, it's not quite
Yeah,
as good a
that's the one I
video.
don't like. Free as a Bird video is flawless.
Free as a Bird video's got all the little things that are clues to songs in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what's the
Um,
fact you told me?
the fact I found the other day was that I found this from the Andrew Dixon channel where he obviously covers the Beatles a lot on his YouTube channel. That's his main focus.
Oh,
And
so it wasn't your own fact then?
no, I think it was Andrew Dixon tweeted it. You always find out facts from somewhere, don't you? But
No, I make them up.
he didn't know.
I
He
come from the
didn't know.
Donald Trump school of facts. I make up facts, Phil.
Well, he didn't know the fact either. But apparently, the actress who appears, one of the actresses in the Free as a Bird video, is Kate Ford, who is better known. If anyone watches Coronation Street, not that I do, but she is Tracy Barlow. She's Tracy Barlow in Coronation Street. But she is the one who appears. They come out of the hairdressers or something.
Yeah, there's two of them come out, isn't there?
It's not long after the nurse selling poppies from a tray. Not long after that, there's two young women are featured where you can see their faces, and it's the second one of those with the dark hair is Kate Ford from Coronation Street. If anybody wanted to know. Another thing I was just struck me about talking about Jeff Lynne producing. Of course, Jeff Lynne made his name with ELO. John Lennon liked ELO, didn't he?
I think so, yeah.
He liked them, and in fact, he actually said that if the Beatles had carried on,
They would have
they
sounded
would have
like
sounded like
ELO.
ELO. So I suppose that was another justification of hiring Jeff Lynne to work on those tracks.
I only have one issue with ELO, possibly. Any song that it has the prominent part of it is the name Bruce. Don't bring me down, Bruce. is just. If the
What is the
Beatles had
lyric?
turned into that, then I would have been slightly worried. To be fair, for years I always thought he was singing "Don't Bring Me Down, Roosk." I thought it was about those biscuits you had as a kid, the Rusk biscuits. I thought it was about them. So, yeah.
So, have we exhausted Now and Then? We've pretty much given our thoughts on
I
that.
think we have. I am going to put it as a great single. Is it the greatest Beatles song of all time? Probably not. Is it the worst? No. Is it the best out of the three they released from 1995? Yes, but I think that has a lot to do with production. I think it's a really good track. I think it emotionally tugs at the heartstrings. It's poignant. It's very good. It's what we need for these times. We need something sort of reflective and uplifting all in the same go.
I agree it's good. I think they did a really good job on it. I did find it emotionally touching. I can't deny that. And, whether it's of the same quality as the other tracks, whether it's, it's stuck now on the end of the new Blue album.
Yeah, they were released today, weren't they?
Yeah. Whether it's going to stand its place after you've played through all those tracks from the late 60s, after you've played through all those highlights from Sergeant Pepper, White Album, Abbey Road, Get Back, Don't Let Me Down, Come Together, Here Comes the Sun. After you've heard all those, does this live up to that quality? It makes a nice coda to it, and I say I don't think it has no business being there. Some people might say it has no business being there, but I don't have a problem.
You certainly wouldn't say that. You wouldn't say it's a Beatles track from the era the Beatles were around, because it sounds very different to, obviously it's going to sound similar because they all have their roots in something, but it does sound more of now, if you know what I mean, because obviously it was made now, so it is more of now more than it was then. So it's more now
than then.
and then than it was then now. So it's more now than then, but it is still then than it is now. So it's a bit of both. It's a bit now and then, if I'm honest, Phil.
Well, it's 2 thumbs up from us for Now and Then. That was it. That was the final Beatles song. We will now close the channel. That was it. There's nothing more to talk about, Ben. We've had the final Beatles
Game over,
song.
That's
it. Game over. Thanks for watching, everybody. We won't be back.
Yeah, that's it. We are done. I'm off to open a marshmallow shop in Bognor Regis.
And I'm going to go and hike all the way around the world wearing nothing but a pair of shorts and carrying a long staff.
Well, that sounds quite sexy, actually.
Maybe not. We'll be back with another video very soon. Thank you. Like this if you've liked it, and share
subscribe
it if you feel like it, and subscribe to us.
Please
and
subscribe. We want to retire.
Definitely
Please.
back. Honestly, unlike the Beatles, we will be back. We'll get back.
Get
Bye
back.
for now.
Oh, you got in there before me.